People who liked Elon Musk but no longer do. What was the turning point? That whole thing with the kids trapped in the cave in Thailand where Musk tried to insert himself as the hero. When the pro divers actually rescued the kids and nobody took Musk's mini submarine idea seriously. And then he goes and calls the leader of the rescue team a pedophile. It really revealed a lot about his character to me. He's got an ego the size of the sun, the maturity of a 12-year-old, and the self-awareness of a brick. The first time I realized there's something wrong with him was when he accused one of the mine divers of being a pedophile because he was mad at him. It was all downhill from there. I liked him when he was focused on making green energy affordable. I remember when he came out with the Tesla solar roof, and I thought it was very cool. I still think it's a great idea. The turning point for me was when he became more political. When he started going down the anti-woke and conspiracy theorist path. I noticed that the type of people that were rallying around him were not the kind of people I like or even agree with. And Musk kept doubling down, to the point where he bought Twitter and lost all that money. It just became extremely obvious that he's very thin-skinned, and he's the type of person that can never admit he's wrong about anything. Then, of course, he started letting his racism and anti-Semitism slip out. But I was way past my turning point by then. No single turning point, but several things over time. For me, the very first moment was when he kept insisting that our world is a simulation based on incredibly flimsy logic, and everybody was just like, "Oh yes, good point, Mr. Musk." Like, I don't have a strong opinion on the idea, but I was sort of turned off by how he had somehow risen above scrutiny at that moment. Then came the Thai cave rescue incident. I wasn't bothered by him trying to contribute resources to help, even if nobody had asked for it. But the false accusation, calling his critic a pedo guy irk, and everything that followed in that story was a big issue. Then came the Cybertruck. That thing is ridiculous on a practical level, in so many ways. Then came the actions he took immediately after purchasing Twitter. A lot of really bad business decisions and really poor treatment of people. Honestly, my shift in perspective came when I noticed the pattern of him using controversy to stay relevant. Initially, his ideas and ambitions for space and clean energy were enthralling. Then it became a sequence of erratic tweets, controversial stances, and haphazard business moves that seemed more about stirring the media pot than true innovation. The Thai cave fiasco, as mentioned, was an eye-opener, but what sealed it for me was the entire fiasco with the Twitter acquisition. It's one thing to be an eccentric genius, it's another to wield influence without a compass. Twitter. Thai cave thing is when it started, but then it continued with each and every time he opened his stupid mouth about stuff he clearly had no idea about. He's not a futurist. He's just another reactionary who wishes he could be a 19th century robber baron. If your goal is making humanity a multi-planetary species, the cost of Twitter would have bought a lot of spaceship development. Stuff such as him saying he'll donate $6 billion to fight world hunger if the charity actually laid out a comprehensive plan to make it work. They did, and then he snuck away, never to mention it again. Weird bloke. Stands for nothing other than his next 100 million. When he started talking, there was an episode of I think Star Trek Discovery where one character is making an inspiring speech about the history of spaceflight, and he mentions the Wright brothers, Neil Armstrong, Elon Musk, fictional dude who invents the warp engine hasn't aged very well. The moment he started talking about Ukraine having to submit to Russia and be done with it. Then JT was further amplified by him randomly shutting down Starlink to sabotage Ukrainian military operations out of petness. Realizing he's just as much of jerk-off rich bloke as the rest of them. Once I started learning more about him, my opinion changed. I read his authorized biography about a decade ago. Dude is a complete tool who sees people as a resource for his consumption. I liked him when he was pushing hard for electric vehicles and being a mad scientist making flamethrowers and stuff. My turning point was when he became active on Twitter and I saw what his personality was like. Lol. Just a sad man who desperately wants people to love him and think he's funny. I prefer my evil billionaires to not care if I live or die, like Bezos or Zuck. Everyone saying the cave thing are probably right, but once he dipped out of the Zuckerberg cage fight I knew he was dodge it. I was on Team Mars space race and electric cars. Hell yeah. Rich people suck but Elon is good. And then I took a moment to think about it and realized no, rich people still shouldn't exist, and Elon is no exception. And then I learned about him a bit, found out he didn't actually do any significant work to get to where he is today, and lost what remaining respect I had. When the Thai cave rescue happened, I was already anti-Musk enough to kinda shrug and say, oh, guess the mask is off today. The cave situation was the first moment I thought he was misguided, but it wasn't until he started aligning with Trump and other authoritarians that he lost my good faith. when he showed support to Israel, but refused to acknowledge Palestinian suffering. He even visited Israel during the current genocide, but refused to visit Palestine.